I know. I thought it was too.
Josh Allen posts 323 yards through the air with Amari Cooper hauling in a touchdown.
Mad at me because of Nick's picks? Because I got one wrong?
Yeah, you told me to take the points.
Yeah, I did. I got one wrong. This is not, this is not financial advice.
I'll tell that to my kids.
Well, we'll see. 1-1 going into tonight.
Okay. Amari Cooper had a nice touchdown. Here's Josh postgame.
It looked pretty good. It's a huge shout out to him for putting in the extra hours of getting ready for this game. It's not easy being traded in the week and playing a game and playing real live reps where he played quite a bit. Shout out to him.
Okay, were you impressed by the Bills in Amari's debut?
Yeah, classic one. Everything about the Bills this season and Amari. You remember last week when everyone was throwing a little miniature parade for the Devontae Adams trade, and old unpopular Nick Wright said the more important AFC East trade was Amari Cooper, the more impactful one. Brew actually agreed with me on that one because of the need that the Bills had. And the Bills fell down 10-0. And then they rolled off 34 straight points. So, yeah, of course I was impressed. The Bills are really good. And while, I'm not naming names, but some people picked the Dolphins to win the division.
Okay,
And other people picked the Jets to win the division. Oh, you think the Dolphins, if Tua was healthy, were looking A+?
Well,
you think they were looking good? You think
the number one offense last year. Now they can't do anything.
All right, that's fine.
Also, Tua's coming back.
Tua will be back.
The Bills are really good.
Are they really good? Really good?
They're 5-2,
They're what they always have
when
been.
they're rolling, but they're always really good. They're just not. They're not good enough, but they're really good.
They're good.
Here's the thing. People, and I'm one of them, but people kill the Bills for not being able to do what nobody can do, which is beat the Chiefs. If the standard is, can you beat the Chiefs? Two teams can say yes. One of them, the guy retired and now broadcasts for us. And the other one, Joe Burrow, the team seemingly has no interest in fielding a competent defense. So nobody can beat the Chiefs. But the Bills are really good, and their biggest weakness was outside receiver, and they addressed it with Amari Cooper. So, yeah, I was impressed. I thought they were really good.
Yeah, it was impressive. And like you said, you said it before, they lost to the Bengals and, in the playoffs as well. So it's not just the Chiefs. But, again, I think they looked terrible in the first half. I don't know what was going on. They're down 10-7 at halftime. And then they just took off. And, yeah, Amari was great. Josh Allen, this is kind of what we've been wanting to see from him. He threw it 33 times, which isn't a ton, but it's his season high for attempts. And, obviously, he threw for over 300 yards. So I'm glad to see them. They're going to open it up more. I'm sure Amari was somewhat uncomfortable. Like on his touchdown pass, he had the rookie, Keon Coleman, had to tell him, where to go. And so, yeah, this is going to make them better again. I think it puts them up there with the Houston Texans, right below the Chiefs and the Ravens.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I think what's most impressive is what it's going to do, not only for Josh, but for the other guys, Coleman, Shakir, the tight ends, offensive passing game, because Josh was already very effective early in this season. Now you give him a bona fide number one threat to opposing defenses. You have to respect Amari Cooper. Regardless if he knows the plays or not, you know what he's capable of. And so that knocks everyone down to being covered by a number 2, a number 3, a number 4 defender. And
everything fits better.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
this is just, and you don't have the idea of a quarterback that has to force feed a guy.
Holmes, not good, except.
All right. Well, that was jarring. You don't have to force feed a guy. Okay, so let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. And yeah, it was great, right? I think Coleman had his best game of his career. And a lot of that is because of what Amari Cooper can bring, right? It just makes the Bills' offense ultimately more threatening, harder for defenses to cover and scheme against them. And it's going to unlock a lot for the Buffalo Bills, right? It was definitely a weird game to start, right? They were down 10-0 to the 1-4 Tennessee Titans, right? And then it was just one of those things, because then there were, it was a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. And that game felt slightly too tough at that point. I know the score ended up being 34-10 and all of that. But it definitely felt a little harder than you would want it to be for the Buffalo Bills. But it was a great, clean game, 21 for 33, 323 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 116 rating for Josh Allen. It was awesome to see Amari Cooper get going. He had, 4 for 5. 4 receptions for 5 on 5 targets. He had some easy catches, some more difficult catches, 66 yards, 1 touchdown. And there was at one point where you could see him, he's talking on the line of scrimmage, essentially being like, what am I doing here? And Coleman, I think it was Coleman, was like, yeah, I don't, of course I don't know what they said, but you could tell he was kind of like, what's the story here? So that is not an easy situation for Amari Cooper to be in. And it was awesome to see them not force it to Amari either. And, he targeted 9 different receivers, because Amari is a complementary piece to this Buffalo Bills offense. To the Jets, Devontae, they need to make Devontae the offense with Aaron Rodgers, right? So it's a different need for the Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets. And I don't really care to talk about the New York Jets in this segment, but the one other issue, though, is that the run game was nowhere to be found. 74 yards on 20 carries. 1/3 of that came from one run. And so like I've said this in my previous video about the Buffalo Bills, like, I'm a stickler for those types of things. I'm always leery of the sustainability of all that. And again, I know not all games you're going to rush for 120 yards or whatever, but those things never sit well with me personally. That is definitely something that I just lock in a lot. I always talk about the run game for these teams, especially with great quarterbacks like a Josh Allen. I like how they weren't centered on Josh Allen being 80 yards of that run game. Like, I'm happy to see that. But it is something that I would like to see the Bills try to consistently improve upon, right? Because the Bills have this ability to kind of be this really great balanced offense where it's like, where are we going to go? Are we going to feed the tight ends? Are we going to feed our running backs? Is Josh Allen going to rip off a 10, 15-yard run but get out of bounds and not lower his shoulder? Are they going to go deep on the outside to Amari Cooper, right? Like, you want to see this offense become overwhelming, right? Overwhelming. This is what Dan Orlovsky talked about weeks ago, where he said, the way how this offense is humming, and this is when they were at, when they were, I think, 3-0 or whatever, when they were really kind of cruising. He said, this is such a high level offense that unless the defense has elite communication, this team is going to hang 30 on them. And I think that's true, but with Amari Cooper, that makes it way more resilient. That makes what Dan Orlovsky said way more likely. And I kind of keep saying this in kind of all my Bills videos at this point. Because since Bruce says that they're right behind the Ravens and the Chiefs. That may or may not be true. I'm not really here to share an opinion about that just now. But let's just say it is true. I would like to see the Bills make another move. Again, I don't know if it's offensively or defensively. I haven't made up my mind about that, quite frankly. But it's make another move. Last week I said that, and they ended up trading for Amari Cooper, and I spoke it into existence. It's like, what is another move that they can make to make this team even better, even more ruthless, even more scary to deal with, whether it's offensively or defensively? And I always use the Rams as that example. They went out and got OBJ and Von Miller, and that was the difference between them winning the Super Bowl and losing. It was a difference between them beating Tom Brady and beating Joe Burrow and the Bengals and not, right? It was the fundamental difference. They needed those pieces to get them over the hump, and it worked. And so you have such an awesome low maintenance wide receiver in Amari Cooper. I'm just curious, what is that next thing that you can do to make your team even better, even more convincing, even more potentially dominant? That is still what I'm looking for. And I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts on what the Bills can do by the trade deadline to maybe improve even more. I definitely would love to hear your thoughts. I really can't make up my mind. I was confident in them needing a wide receiver, which I brought up, like Amari or Devontae or whoever, and they got Amari, and I'm really, Bills fans have to definitely be happy about that. But I'm just curious, like, what is that next step for them people to be like, the Ravens don't want to face the Bills, the Chiefs don't want to face the Bills, right? Like, how do you get into that category? I'm not so sure they're there right now. Not to say that I think the Chiefs are super threatening, and we'll see what the Ravens look like versus the Buccaneers. But it's just what can give the Bills an edge? Because I don't think the Bills have an edge. I think the Bills can compete with, say, the Chiefs or the Ravens, even though the Ravens obviously beat them pretty good. I think the Bills can still compete with these teams, but what can give the Bills an edge? What can stack the deck a little bit more in their favor? like getting Amari Cooper, has definitely been in the right direction. What is that next thing that they can do? That's what I'm personally looking for more than anything. But definitely a nice win. Not the craziest win. It is the Tennessee Titans, so there's only such strong takeaways. But still, nonetheless, a great get-right game. A good game to be able to integrate Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper will also continue to get better as the season goes on and as he continues to learn the playbook, and Josh Allen needs to learn about him, and Amari needs to learn about Josh. So this relationship will also be a work in progress to a degree. It's going to open up the field for the other players as a whole. So it's definitely going to be a pretty great synergistic effect. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Amari Cooper's first game with the Buffalo Bills, and where do you rank the Buffalo Bills at this point? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.